Okay. Hi, welcome to the Liam Scheff Show on UCY TV. It's just like we just started. It's kind of a deja vu. I hit my head on the floor. Did I say that? Same 4 minutes over and over. So what I did was I got into a headstand, which I can do, a tripod headstand. I'm strong. I have strong sides. I can do that. You put your knees. No, 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 no. It's not this kind of show. You put your knees around your ears. I guess it is that kind of show. And you put your elbows on your. You put your hands on the ground. You put your elbows on your knees. I know what this sounds like. And then you take your feet in your back and you point them up at the sky, wherever the sky is for you. If you're in China, you have to point it the other way. And then I leaned my feet against the wall behind me, which wasn't far away, and I pushed, and it was hard. I pushed up, probably risking some sort of hematomal blowout, just just like blood spraying out of my forehead. But I pushed up and I got into a handstand position, and then I thought, well, that was good. And so I did it the next day, and I did it, and I went up, and I'm like, well, okay, this is cool. This is like my new exercise. So I came back down, and I put my head back down where it was, and it was on a pillow instead of on the knees thing. I had just gotten into, yeah, whatever, you understand. And or if you don't, just keep following along. It'll become clear. So I went to push myself. Now my head, I'm in a tripod, right? I got my hands on the ground, my head on a pillow, and I already did it once. Of course I can do it again. So I pushed myself up, not realizing that the 170 pounds my arms are pushing is getting to be a little bit tiring with all the blood rushing to my head. With all the blood rushing to my head. All the blood rushing to my head. What could possibly go wrong? So I push up again, and I start to feel a little bit weak, and without intending to, when I was about halfway up, which is probably 18 inches, 9 inches. No, it's not this kind of show. Just follow along. I plummeted back down, and I slammed my head into the ground. I slammed my head into the ground like really hard, and I heard my spinal column make a sound, which is the sound that the last sound that an accordion makes when it's out of air, just sort of, yeah, it was that. And then I laid on the ground just for a moment, and I realized that I wasn't dead, but I wasn't sure how well the rest of the day or the lifetime or the year was going to go. And then I got up, and I was filming this actually because I was I was I was trying to show my incredible form. Yeah. So that'll be on my Facebook page in about a week for all of you to mock and deride. I did have the good comedic form to get up and say, "Don't try this at home." That's my entry to the what is it? Do not try it at home sweepstake, the America's Funniest Home Video Contest. So there you go. That's what I've been doing. I've been working on posters, how-to posters, demonstration posters for how things work in this oil-based society. We live in an oil-based society. Everything is based on oil. Everything runs on oil, gasoline, etc. I took a car ride. A car is a machine that wastes 80% of its energy, by the way. I don't know if you know that. Right. It wastes 80% of it. Turns 80% of the energy put into it into heat. That's what it does. The car is essentially a very expensive toaster oven. You could cook anything, just put it on top of the engine block, and by the time you get anywhere, you'll have a meal, a fully cooked, prepared meal. Thank you, Chevrolet. So we got into the car, and we were going somewhere, going to a farmer's market. And we stopped, and I said, okay, I had to run into a store, and I said, okay, I'll be 10 minutes, you can shut off the engine. Because everybody leaves their engine running, as though gas didn't cost anything, and we're just idling, we're not using much gas. Okay, that's fine. No problem. I mean, we should all idle all the time. Most important thing we can do is get in our cars and sit around with the thing idling, so pedestrians like myself and cyclists like myself have to breathe your stinking effluents. Thank you. Yay! I got out, I came back in, I did my 10-minute errand, I came back in, my shirt full of contraband goods. I'd stuffed them in so I looked like a walrus. Not a Pacific walrus, they're not doing that well. Or otter. Remember Otter from Animal House? That's what I looked like. Anyway, I came out, and I said, okay, thanks. And my friend went to push because it's not a turnkey anymore. Nobody wants to be able to turn a key to connect the to complete the electrical circuit to start the battery. I mean, to start the engine by putting electricity from the battery to well, how does an engine start anyway? You complete the electrical circuit. You turn the ignition key. Does it create a spark? No, the battery and the charge. I don't know. I'm gonna have to look that up. Anyway, you don't do that anymore. So she went to press the button because everything has to just have one button. and the car didn't start. And I thought, all right, try it again. Try it again. The car doesn't start. All right, try it and hold it, like a VCR. Try to get it to eject the disc. Tried and hold it. The car didn't start, but it did turn on the radio and every other thing. And we realized that we were just stuck, and we were, a half hour away from home, and it was, just country road and not great. There was, she'd seen an auto repair zone thing down the road, 3/4 of a mile, so I got out and hoofed it and walked. And she gave me the remote control. There's a remote control, you see. There's a remote control for a car because everything has to be battery-powered and electrical-powered because that's the way they make them these days, so you can't fix them yourselves. That's why. You understand? People used to be able to fix cars themselves. No more. As I was walking in, the gap-toothed but friendly guy working behind the counter in between, beer binges in his trailer was nice enough he was explaining to a guy that somebody had brought in a car, and he lifted up the hood, and then he looked under the dashboard, and he realized he couldn't touch the car because it was wired like an iPod. He just didn't have any idea, like a motherboard for a massive computer. He didn't have any idea what was going on in there, and he couldn't do anything with it. And I'm thinking, well, welcome to my world. I gave him the remote control. We figured out what kind of cyanide metal disaster battery to put into it. He did that. It has, of course, a silicon microchip inside, gray, just what we need. I walk back. Car doesn't start, so we're just waiting. And my friend, doesn't want to call a tow truck. It's $150, but eventually we call a tow truck, and the guy comes with this little handheld battery Kickstarter. Instead of having to jump from battery to battery, it's just now a battery that you plug in, and the car started. Well, her battery was dying. But a couple hours later, my point that I'm always making, which is we're a society entirely dependent on the automobile, was writ large in the sky, and the joke was on yours truly. What happens when we don't have cars in an emergency? I don't mean like a slow increase of gas prices, which will come after the Saudi Arabia bubble that's holding up the Iraqi-Saudi Arabia bubble that's holding down oil prices, will not last forever, just as American oil didn't last forever. They're pumping at what's called full bore right now, just to put stuff onto the market. They're undercutting of the fracking costs of the American frackers, which is not a curse word, but it probably is. So fracking can no longer stay in business. Bankruptcies have been happening all over the middle of the country in frack land. When the price goes back up, some new companies will delve back into fracking. There may be a second smaller bubble, but I doubt it will amount to much. Everybody's prediction that fracking would hit its peak by about 2019 seems to be right on track, maybe a little bit before. We may even be, halfway down from where we are with fracking reserves, with fracking production. So what happens when? There's no tow truck to call, or there is, but it's very expensive. Or what if we're all sharing the ride, like in India? Or what if we're all growing food locally? I wanted to talk about Fukushima because nobody talks about it. Or I should say nobody who matters talks about it. Nobody important talks about it. This is the most important story in the world. There is no more important story than Fukushima. Name a story more important than the Pacific Ocean going dead. Go ahead. I'll just wait quietly. Anybody? Pacific Ocean dying? Pacific Ocean dying? Anyone? Anyone? No? Yeah. Pacific Ocean dying. Radiation expert. Horrific health toll from Fukushima. Impossible not to be moved by scale of deaths and suffering. Thousands to die of cancer, and that's just the tip of the carcinogenic iceberg. Number of dead, everybody's favorite, babies significantly increased in many areas of Japan. Government actions unconscionable reads the headline at ENE News, one of the few dedicated news aggregators on the Fukushima issue. Dr. Ian Fairley, radiation biology expert educated at Princeton University, who's worked in the UK government and European Parliament, well, nobody's perfect, August 2015. The human toll from Fukushima is horrendous. 2,000 Japanese people have died from the evacuations. It means during the evacuations, 2,000 people died. Well, okay, we didn't hear about that. We're never going to. You start counting the dead and you realize there's no end. And another 5,000 are expected to die from future cancers. Well, immediately the nuclear industry says, well, those cancers could have been caused by anything, and you're just speculating. Well, you're just speculating that there were no cancers from Chernobyl, or that nobody died from Chernobyl except the dozen or so people, or a couple dozen who died in the initial fire phase. Recently, Dr. Alfred Körblein from Nuremberg, Germany, noticed a 15% drop in the number of live births in Fukushima. 15% is, what they even note, highly significant. That's highly significant. In December 2011. He also observed a 20% increase in the infant mortality rate in 2012. Well, that's a fifth. I mean, these are large increases that you would notice if you were doing banking or something like that. But when it comes to human beings dying, it's not very important, right? Because there's 7 billion of us, so who cares? That's the official motto, who cares? The official widely observed policy is that small amounts, here we go, of radiation are harmless, says Dr. Ian Fairley. Well, the last time I went through the airport, in fact, the last 2 times, and I'm not proud to say it, so tired was I of getting groped and penilely backhand patted that I said, fine, I'm going through your stupid machine so I can get out of this radiation death zone faster. Now think about it. We go to the airport once in a while to fly, which is unnatural, and we get, to go in the vacuum-sealed metal canisters so that we can be hurled through the air in a radioactive zone anyway. And we go through a radiation machine just to do it. All our stuff is irradiated, but so is our body, just so that they can not find the person who didn't have anything to do with the thing that nobody remembers anymore called 9/11, which was a policy initiative from the Project for a New American Century, essentially. So why are we doing this? Well, there's no good reason. We go through, it happens. If you demur, if you refuse, if you say, I'm not going to be X-rayed by you. Well, I know you don't call it an X-ray, but it's an X-ray. It's ionizing radiation. If I'm not going to let you do that to me, then I have to stand here in this zone full of radioactive machines, X-raying people, X-raying bags, while you grope me for 5 minutes and then, ask me my mother's maiden name. Speaking of mothers, I think I'll save that story for the second half. So I just went through, and I knew I felt sick about it, and I knew I just shouldn't have done it. The official, and this is why, listen to this, the official widely observed policy, all around the world, by the way, is that small amounts of radiation, small amounts, are harmless. Scientifically speaking, this is untenable. The Japanese government is attempting to increase the public limit for radiation in Japan from 1 millisievert to 20 millisieverts per year, which is like, 1 Shirley Temple to, like 20 Roy Rogers per year. It's big. This is not only unscientific, it is also unconscionable. In some, the health toll from Fukushima nuclear disaster is horrendous. The Fukushima accident is still not over. What's that you said? And its ill effects will linger for a long time into the future, when monkeys rule the world. However, we can say now that the nuclear disaster at Fukushima delivered a huge blow to Japan and its people. No, not that kind of. It is impossible not to be moved by the scale of Fukushima's toll in terms of deaths, suicides, mental ill health, and human suffering. Fukushima's effect on Japan is similar to Chernobyl's massive blow. No, not that kind. Rossiya Segundia, Russian government news agencies, August 20th, 2015. Japanese government is still in denial and refuses to recognize the disastrous consequences of the Fukushima nuclear catastrophe. We should know something about this. We also had denial-based response to nuclear contamination. London-based independent consultant on radioactivity, Dr. Ian Fairley, hey, we just heard from him, states, adding that while thousands of victims have already died, thousands more will soon pass away. So this is a restating of the restating. So let's look at Alfred Körblein, who was quoted. Former senior scientist at Munich Environmental Institute in University of Bremen professor. Infant mortality in 7 prefectures near Fukushima was significantly increased in 2012. So compared to other prefectures, a significant 25% increase was found in 2012. That's there's a highly significant 91% increase in infant mortality in March 2011, likely an immediate effect of the earthquake and tsunami. Well, of course, but the 25% following in 2012 doesn't have to do with the the tidal wave. We're talking about radiation, and that's immediately after. So why aren't they measuring today? Why don't we recognize this is the most important thing in the world? This is the most important news story. There are no other news stories than Fukushima. That oil decline, the lack of availability of locally grown food, the lack of locally grown food, should I say? I mean, what else is there? I mean, where's George Clooney? Where's Susan Sarandon? Where are all the Hollywood douchebags? Where's Matt Damon? A parade of Hollywood douchebags and finks standing around, patting themselves on the back for wearing AIDS ribbons because they think Africans somehow get sick for 30, 40 years after they have sex, so they need drugs that peel their skin off. Where are all the Hollywood crap hounds? Where are all of them? All of them, chasing ambulances, looking for something to make themselves feel better while they stand in the desert of Southern California accepting awards for crying on screen. Oh, my love of acting. Oh, my love of Hollywood. Where are all of them standing up saying, hey, never mind gay marriage, never mind your gun laws, never mind making fun of Tea Party activists, never mind any of it. What about this massive die-off of life in the Pacific Ocean? Yes, that Pacific Ocean, which makes most of the oxygen on Earth. Ha 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 ha, joke's on us, we're all going to die. What about that, Susan? Hey, I like Susan Sarandon just as much as anybody. I liked her boobs in whatever movies I saw them in, and she's a fine actress. But where are they now? Tim Robbins, where are they now? Many baby seals dying of leukemia-linked disorder along California coast. Funny, California is near the Pacific Ocean. Blamed for over a third of recent deaths in San Francisco Bay Rescue Center. No, I'm sure it's seal AIDS. Let's look for a virus. Of the 46 recently weaned northern elephant seal deaths reported by the San Francisco Bay, I don't know what that sentence means, between April 20th and August 1st of this year, disseminated intravascular coagulation was listed as the cause of death of 16, over a third of the total. Disseminated, U.S. National Library of Medicine, disseminated intravascular coagulation, or DIC, sorry, is a serious disorder in which in which the proteins that welcome to the 8th grade, that control blood clotting become overactive. Risk factors for DIC include blood transfusion reaction, cancer, especially certain types of leukemia. DIC, or DIC, disseminated intravascular coagulation, is a pathological process characterized by the widespread activation of the clotting cascade that results in the formation of blood clots in the small vessels throughout the body, and can ultimately lead to multiple organ damage. Severe bleeding can occur from various sites. DIC, or DIC, does not occur by itself, but only as a complicating factor from another underlying condition, usually those with a critical illness. It can lead to multi-organ failure, causes solid tumors, and blood cancers, particularly acute. I got to pause to read this word. Promyelocytic, Gesundheit, leukemia, I know, first try, sepsis or severe infection, severe allergic or toxic reactions, giant hemangiomas, hemanginas, I don't think so, and large aortic aneurysm. Oh, geez, sounds good, doesn't it? Disseminated intravascular coagulation with a type of fibrinolysis is a DIC usually seen in acute pyromyelocytic, oh my God, we're falling apart, leukemia, APL. Let's go back to the original article. Listen to this. A third of the seal deaths are due to disseminated intravascular coagulation between April and August 1st of this very year that we're in. DIC does not occur by itself. Solid tumors and blood cancers, particularly leukemia. What causes leukemia? Don't tell me global warming. Are we done yet? Why are we not taking this story more seriously? This is an intensely serious story for everybody on Earth. Fukushima nuclear waste detected along Southern California coast. Highest levels seen anywhere in North America since the nuclear testing program began. Oh no, since the not nuclear test, since the water testing program began. 8.4 becquerels per meter, square meter of radioactive cesium measured near the beach between LA and San Diego. Well, it's just where I'm going to be in a month. Listen, they give us numbers that we don't understand, becquerels, sieverts, millisieverts, et cetera, et cetera. It doesn't matter. They're telling you that it's a lot of radiation. The sample was taken just over a mile off the coast of Del Mar, California, located about 15 miles north of San Diego and 100 miles south of Los Angeles. The only other location Woods Hole reporting center has reported detecting nuclear waste from Fukushima Daiichi along the shoreline of North America is Ucluelet, Canada, about 1,200 miles north of Del Mar, which seems to indicate that the whole area is coded and they're not testing very much. That article received much commentary about the failure of Woods Hole, which is not what it sounds like. No, this isn't that kind of show. Why aren't we dealing with this issue? How many animal species have died off on the West Coast? Well, you could do a search. How many species of sea life have been in an extinction level event on the West Coast? This doesn't seem to get anybody's attention, does it? There's an extinction level event going on the West Coast, and you just can't seem to rouse yourself enough because it just sounds like another news item. It just sounds like another story. Oh, all the sea stars have vanished. Oh, let's see what's on TV. Look at that. There are no more razor clams. Hey, where's all the plankton? Look at the giant algal mass that's blooming for hundreds of miles, maybe 1,000 miles off the West Coast. It shouldn't be there. It's anoxic. It's starving out oxygen breathers. Well, this is just another news story. We don't really need the Pacific Ocean, do we? I mean, it couldn't have anything to do with the trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions of becquerels or hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds of radiologic material that are just connected to the Pacific Ocean on the coast of Japan. Could it? Could it? Could it? Could it? Could it? Yeah, it could. Let's just cut through the cake, shall we? Yes, it could have something to do with it. It could have everything in the world to do with it. And there's a guy called Arnie Gunderson. Gunderson at Fair Winds, I think, Fair Winds Institute. And people write him and say, Arnie, I have a plan. I have a cunning plan, they say. Arnie, I have a cunning plan that could probably do something about this problem. And he says, tell me your cunning plan. Tell me all about it. And they tell him, and it's like, well, that could work. I mean, I have a cunning plan. Oh, you're listening to the Liam Scheff Show on Truth Frequency Radio and UCY TV. We're at the break on Truth Frequency. We're not at the break on UCY, and we're going to power through with radioactive hatred. Spider-Man does whatever a spider can. Listen, this is a myth. Spider-Man is a myth about a guy. It's a myth about the nuclear age. We were exploding bombs all over the world, nuclear bombs all over the world. And the subconscious of human beings picked it up and made a fable out of it because that's what human beings do. We're storytellers. The Fantastic Four is the same thing. All the Ant-Man, they're all the same thing. The Hulk is clearly the same thing. These are all radiological Greek myths retold in the era of the nuclear bomb. But right now we have a non-mythical situation, and I don't know how to wake people up. I've been talking about it for 2 years, 3 years. I don't know how to wake people up to say that there's no other issue to talk about except relocalizing food. There's Fukushima and relocalizing food. That's it. I don't care who Bruce Jenner wants to fuck. I don't care who anybody wants to have sex with. I don't give a good goddamn. If you look out into the world and the Pacific Ocean is being destroyed due to mysterious circumstances while there's an ongoing nuclear meltdown on the coast of Japan, with nuclear bombs all over the country waiting to be destroyed, just waiting to be destroyed by flood, dam breakage, hurricane, broken pipe, human error, etc., etc. What are we doing? Well, I mean, why isn't the whole world up in arms about this? We don't all want to die, do we? Or do we? Or do we? I mean, maybe the human species is a slug. You know, maybe we're some sort of multicellular organism that knows that it's too fat and too sick to live. Maybe. Maybe we're too stupid and too short-sighted to deal with something that's so far away. We're a funny little storytelling monkey that makes tools and got a little bit of oil, and so we destroyed it all. Maybe it's not our fault. Maybe when we all die, it's not going to all be our fault either. Yay! You're listening to the Liam Scheff Show on Truth Frequency Radio and UCY TV. You can support independent journalism. Currently writing official stories too. The oil alarm video should be out relatively soon. Everybody will love it and be alarmed and also oiled and excited because it's fun, it's light. It'll take you all the way through the oil history process so that you know why you have to grow food locally. Buy Official Stories. Please buy Official Stories on Amazon.com or Create Space and support independent journalism, or go to my website, liamscheff.com, and throw $10, $20 into the PayPal account and keep me going as I travel and give these talks. That's going to be happening next month. I'm just waiting for the half hour to turn. And we're back on the Liam Scheff Show on UCY TV and Truth Frequency Radio. Smooth as butter. We were talking about Fukushima in the first half hour. It is the most important story in the world. We need to be doing something about it. I don't mean putting up Facebook memes. I mean getting out and screaming bloody murder at everybody in every office because they're lazy, brain-dead slugs and saying, listen, you stupid assholes. This is going to destroy the world. I don't care how many shills the nuclear industry buys. We don't all want to die. We don't all want to die. We don't all want to die because of a slow leaking nuclear hemorrhage into the Pacific Ocean. So it's time that people started listening to the Arnie Gunnarsson at Fairwinds Institute and the engineers who've come up with some reasonable ideas. Here's my idea, by the way. I'll pitch it into the hat. Build a seawall all the way around the Fukushima plant. Drain the water so that the water is no longer impacting the plant. Don't collect the water that's seeping down. You're going to have to dig out a big, big trench around the thing and sort of hollow it out and fill it in with concrete. Then you bury the thing as well as you can in cobalt and cement and lead. It's not perfect, but it's better than nothing. You're going to have to use all the cement in the world for about 2 years, and about 1,000 people are going to die on that project, and they're going to be heroes to the universe, for the human species, for the rest of our time on Earth. At the same time, we're going to have to dismantle every nuclear plant on the planet because these things are so deadly. Anything that's deadly for 100,000 years isn't even worth talking about making a little electricity for so we can recharge our iPods, as much as we love them. Hi, horse, back in the barn. We're back on the Liam Scheff Show. Yeah, I feel that pretty fervently. I don't want us all to die from a slow leaking nuclear hemorrhage into the Pacific Ocean. Do you? Do you? I mean, do you? I mean, really, do you? Are you awake? Are you awake? Are you awake? Do you want to die from a slow leaking nuclear hemorrhage into the Pacific Ocean? Because if you do, just go drown yourself now. But if you don't, stand up and start screaming about this as clearly as you can in a moderate, I know I said screaming, in a moderate tone of voice, but don't stop, and get everybody's attention and point out what's happening. And when the nuclear bozos come back and tell you it's not horrible, say, listen, these people are pathological narcissists. We're going to fix this problem. Nuclear power is not a solution to keeping the lights on. A little solar, a lot of wind, and a lot of biodiesel locally, and a lot less light, a lot fewer, lights left on at night would really be the solution to this problem. We don't all have to go down dying in this world because a few people are so mentally ill with their lack of appreciation for how dangerous this technology is. We don't all have to go down dying. We don't all have to do it. We can stand up and say, enough, we're going to deal with this problem. We know that it's going to be hard. We could actually bring together great swaths of the human species on the planet by recognizing a common enemy, which is ionizing radiation. All the pro-nuke people, please go to Fukushima right now and move in. I understand there are some empty houses. Yay! Let's talk about gardening, because that was fun. And, that's the way I like it. I like it. Mother Earth news. Yes, it's just an abrupt. It's an abrupt change of pace here on the Liam Scheff Show on UCY and Truth Frequency Radio, where you can support independent journalism by buying Official Stories or The Truth About Love on Amazon.com. Please do. You won't be sorry. You'll enjoy it. I have to say that some of the reviews that I get are clearly from shills, and they keep just dissing the book and I just don't think they've read it. And they say there are no notes. There are pages and pages of notes in the back. So just open the book and turn to the back. I keep reading these reviews. Pages and pages of notes in the back. Just go read them. It's okay. They're there. They'll help you. What I didn't do in Official Stories was put footnotes out under everything that I had read. What I did was I verified it 3 or 4 times in 3 different sources, and in the end I told you what my basic research method was. And my challenge to the audience is not to believe everything I say. Books that are footnoted at every turn aren't true. They just have footnotes. I mean, the dragon went down the street, footnote. Uh, he said expecto patronum and cast his spell, footnote. The footnotes don't mean anything. They don't have to be real or true. So I find that kind of thing for academic books. My book is a book of philosophy and history, so I left them out and told you in the end what search criteria to use, what the best books on the subject, best movies on the subject, best medical studies on certain subjects are. I think that's a human sort of appendix, not the kind that you have in your body, but an end of a book. I think it's human scaled, and I think that the academic thing that we inherited is not human scaled, and that's why I didn't use it, because people can't read that shit. That's for wonky academics who can't talk to people, and I don't like them. Yay! And those are the ones who didn't like the book, and everybody else did. Restoring soil nutrients. Here are 12 critical soil nutrients your plants need for healthy growth and how to supply them by Jim Hildreth for Mother Earth News. Big 6, NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. K for potassium, don't ask me why. I'm not going to read this whole article. Potash, plant leaves, calcium, magnesium, and sulfur. Those are often left out. Often thought of as secondary elements, plants and soil may not need large supplies, but the roles they play prove as essential to growth as nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. So we have nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, calcium, magnesium, and sulfur. You can get those from natural sources. The article is Restoring Soil Nutrients by Jim Hildreth. It's 20 years old. I didn't know there was an internet then. Potassium, calcium, magnesium, and sulfur said. Trace elements, zinc, boron, yes, I know, manganese, iron, copper, a little copper, molybdenum, I know, rare earth, right? And there's more. But that's not what I wanted to read you about. I wanted to read to you about something called, it's called lasagna. It's a funny name. It's called lasagna. I don't like the name lasagna gardening, but they call it lasagna gardening. But it's really called sheet mulching. So let's look up this article. How to sheet mulch. I'm still here. Turn barren soil into black gold. 9 simple steps to sheet mulching. Now let's just review the show so far. Fukushima, 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 Fukushima. Can you do that? I can. You know what? Fukushima, 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 Fukushima. That's what we're talking about. Now we're going to move on to gardening. Why gardening? Because we have to grow food locally. Why? Why? Anybody? Because we get all our food from, yay, Monsanto land. We get all our food from Monsanto land, which is where? Very far away. Coated with pesticides and gas, natural gas for fertilizer. Yes, we spray gas on our fields to make food grow. That's where we get the nitrogen. Where do we get the phosphate? We mine for it, leaving behind radioactive material. Sheet mulching, an article by, come on, give me your name. Say my name. Jonathan Bates, perhaps? Or Master Bates, as he was known in private school. No, I'm kidding. I like him. I'm kidding. I like him. Yeah. Sheet mulching combines soil improvement. Why food growing locally, even as Fukushima is happening? Because radiation is a slow killer, because we're going to fight to get this thing, it's never going to be fixed, but a little bit remediated. And why else? Because Monsanto land. Because Monsanto land breaks down. Because stem rust will take over the wheat. Because glyphosate-resistant weeds will take over the crops. Because we're not supposed to be eating glyphosate, which is what these GMO crops are really. I don't even think it's the genetically modified stuff that's as bad as the glyphosate sponge that they're used for. I mean, that's what they're built to be, resistant to not soak up or not be bothered by this poison. So they soak it up, and your kids eat it, and you eat it, and you get sick. So you got to grow food in groups, among yourselves, with people, with family, with ex-family, with lovers, with ex-lovers, with neighborhoods, with ex-neighborhoods. I don't care, with X-Men. You have to do it. Much more important than the new Star Wars movie, which will be a fine movie, which people will enjoy, but will not change your life. It will not put any food on your table unless you're working for Disney. It doesn't matter. I know, it's a sacrilege to say that, but it just doesn't bloody matter. It doesn't matter. What matters is growing food. What matters are the potatoes, turnips, sweet potatoes, cabbage, corn, okra, wheat. Did I say turnips, beets, chard, 100 varieties of beans, peas, runners, amaranth, millet, quinoa, all the stuff, oats that you can pull out of your garden, chickens, guinea pigs, rabbits. Don't tell me that you won't eat any rodents. Come on, they're grass eaters. They're not rodents like rats. Small birds that you can raise, quail. You can do so much. You can eat their eggs if you don't want to be, if you want to be vegetarian but not vegan and not a murderer, you can just eat their eggs if you want. It's fine. It's fine. But you got to grow food. You have to have fat sources. So you need things like eggs. I don't like them, but you have to have them, Or crickets, grasshoppers, grubs, anything that produces and stores fat. So you have to be producing food. How do you grow insects? How do you get them to grow? Well, you provide them with the kind of home that they can live in, the kind of terrain boxed in that they can live in. And then you just grow insects the way that people grow other things. And then PETA comes along and tells me it's not okay to eat grasshoppers. But you know what, PETA? Fuck off. Because I'm on your side for so many things, but for God's sake, what are you people really talking about? What are you people really talking about? I'm all for not eating big animals, but stop talking to me about the cruelty and start talking. I understand that it's cruel, but start talking to me about the limited amount of water that we have, the limited amount of land that we have to grow things to stuff into these factory farmed animals. And by the way, right on the other side, the primal people who tell me that we can all eat beef all the time also fuck off. Because we can just farm the United States and it will be like the prairie that it once was. Yeah, there were a couple million animals wandering the land at some point, but you know what? We kill 30,000 cows a day in this country and millions of chickens. 30,000, 30,000, 30,000, 3 days, 100, 3.25 days, 100,000. So let's just say 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, 30. In 10 days, we've gone through the million animals that were on the plane. We cannot be eating 30,000 animals a day. We cannot keep up this lifestyle. We cannot have meat every day. We cannot have meat every week. We can eat lower on the food chain. Lower on the food chain. So everybody who writes me and tells me how we can all have cows, just shut up. You're not correct. You're wrong. You're very wrong, and it's not going to work. There's a reason why it's not going to work. It's because it can't. I'm not saying that nobody should have cattle. Their poop is valuable, and they're grazers, and they can help the prairie heal, but you can't go through 30,000 or 10,000 or 5,000 of them a day. It's a very different way of living that you're talking about. You're talking about keeping animals around for years, using them for milk, and when you kill them, using every single part of the animal, making it last for weeks and months, hunting wild game for the most part. And you know what? We can't, like Native Americans or Indians or whatever you want to call them, hunt wild game. We can't do it because there are 320 million of us. And most of us probably in this country are going to be dead in 50 years. And nobody likes to hear that. There's just no way out of it. Most of the people, that's more than half, in this and every country in the world will probably be dead in 50 years because there's 7 billion of us on the planet. We cannot keep feeding people from Monsanto land because it's failing. The Ogallala Aquifer is starting to decline. California is a failed environment. Totally. We've absolutely destroyed it. It's dead. It's still standing up for some reason. It just doesn't know it's supposed to fall over tomorrow. But when it falls over, everybody's going to hear the shudder all across the country. I'm not trying to fearmonger. I'm telling you to grow food. I'm not telling you to ask the government for help. I'm telling you to grow food. Get out and use your soil and grow food. How? How, Liam? Stop yelling at us. Okay, sorry. You hear about the Kardashians? Go ahead. Sheet mulching combines soil improvement, weed removal, and I know, it's not always pretty and it's not always fun. Long-term mulching in one fell... Dad's angry. Long-term mulching in one fell swoop. This technique, also known as lasagna gardening, can build remarkable soil in just a few years. There are several key components. First, a weed barrier, like cardboard, is laid down to smother weeds. Don't feel bad. In theory, quite often in practice, the cardboard decomposes after the weeds have all died and turned into compost themselves. In other words, the weeds die, giving the soil nutrients, giving bugs, bacteria, insects, and fungi things to eat. That's good. See, you don't have to rip the weeds out, just bury them deep enough. Seriously. Bury them deep enough and they're not going to come back up. Maybe comfrey will. The second ingredient is to add compost or build a layered compost pile that will enrich your new garden bed. What's a layered compost pile? Compost is decaying food matter, not fatty food and not meat, but food matter that will provide carbon, minerals, vitamins and stuff so that little bugs, fungi, bacteria, and insects can eat it and make it into poop. The third step is to add a thick layer of mulch on top. Mulch is shredded wood, bark, to keep new weeds from getting established. Oh, they just cut down trees and shred them. I mean, it's cruel business. Says the writer of this piece, who I think is the fellow Master Bates, Jonathan Bates, sorry, from Massachusetts. I told you we were going to come back there. He says, I have great results mixed with sheet mulching. Sometimes the first year is a bit rough on delicate species until the raw materials break down. You can use sheet mulching to turn lawns or weedy waste areas into gardens in just a few hours, or even to build soil from scratch. Well, we'll tell you what the scratch is. Inside of built frames for raised beds. Sheet mulch can range from just a few inches to 2 feet or more. I recommend, 1.5 feet. Depending on how bad your soil is and how much raw material you have available. It will cook down and settle, he says, quite a bit. For more information, see Patricia Lanza's Lasagna Gardening or Edible Forest Gardens. I like Patricia Lanza's book. I have a few small critiques. The overuse of newspaper. Newspaper comes from the paper industry. The paper industry is incredibly toxic. Nevertheless, we have a lot of newspaper. 9 simple, she didn't invent it, I'm not criticizing her, but what would we use if we didn't have newspaper? Straw, probably. 9 simple steps to sheet mulching. Mow or cut your lawn weeds or other vegetation right down to the ground, number 1. Number 2, plant any crops that will require a large planting hole, including woody plants, perennials in large pots, and large transplants. I think what he's saying is, I don't know if he's saying it exactly, you're going to create seedlings. You're not planting seeds in the mulch. They'll just get lost. And you're going to plant seedlings that have a little bit of soil around them, and you're going to start their root systems inside of a little seedling pot grower. Not that kind of pot. Excuse me. Needed a breath. Water the whole area thoroughly. All right, so you I don't really like his order of things. Mow or cut your lawn or other vegetation right down to the ground. Plant any ground. Never mind the planting. The first thing that you do is you lay down a barrier. I prefer to he says, use a large sheet of cardboard from appliance stores because these last longer and are quicker to lie down, to be flat. I'm sorry, he's from Massachusetts. Lay down a weed barrier. I prefer to use large sheets of cardboard from the appliance stores because these last longer and are quicker to lie down. You can use layers of wet newspaper, too. Make sure to have a 4 to 6 inch overlap where sheets meet so buried weeds can't find a route to the surface. If you already have planted crops or have other pre-existing plants, don't mulch over them. Cut holes in the cardboard to make some breathing space for each plant, or leave some room around each plant when laying newspaper. In other words, if you're planting something like a kind of a tree, of course, you can't bury it, so I'm not quite sure what he's saying. Now you can add your weed-free organic materials. I like to keep it simple and just add a nice layer of compost. You can also do some sheet composting here, alternating layers of nitrogen-rich materials like fresh grass clippings or seaweed, he doesn't say that, or manure. You have to be careful with manure because it's so full of nitrogen. You put that on the bottom. You don't want that to burn the roots, but you put it in there and you mix it with some compost. Compost is your carrot scraps, your eggshells, the greens that you throw away, your leaf clippings from your vining weeds in the yard. You chop those and break them up with a spade or a shovel and put them in a tarp and throw them on top. So you see, the first thing you have is this layer of paper. Now, if we didn't have paper, what would you use? I'm wondering, would you use a little layer of clay that's not permeable enough? Would you use a layer of sand? Weeds can go through sand. Would you use a layer of sand and clay? Maybe. Would you use a layer of hay and sand and stuff? Yeah, you'd eventually build a layer to smother the weeds underneath. And then you would put on top of that a thick nitrogen layer, like a manure, then some hay, then some greens, and a lot of people like to use peat moss in between each layer. Why? I don't know. To separate, to regulate acidity, alkalinity, I don't know. I know that peat moss is controversial among growers because it's harvested and it's not exactly renewable. It's slightly renewable, but maybe not on the time scale that we use it. Time scale, in other words, not fast enough. So we probably overuse it. So peat moss is iffy, but people still use it. You can read about that controversy if you want. He says he likes to keep it simple with a nice layer of compost. A nice layer is like a friendly layer, a layer that you can have over to dinner. watch maybe, like Downton Abbey with, but maybe not Breaking Bad. No, sorry, he means a thick layer. He's from Massachusetts. I like to add a nice layer of compost. You can also do some sheet composting here, alternating layers of nitrogen-rich materials like grass clippings, seaweed, hedge, palm fronds, anything that you can chop up, leaves from plants, leaves from vining stuff, chop, 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 chop. With carbonaceous, with carbon materials like weed-free straw. Well, he's saying weed-free, but you can make anything weed-free. You can take weeds with seeds on them, put them in a bag, and leave them out in the hot, hot, hot sun for 24 to 48 hours, or a week if you want. And boy, do you have some good compost there. And that shit is dead. Those seeds are dead. You've cooked them. You can plant right into your bed with your leg. So you're building this up layer by layer. Now on top you put in a good layer of straw and then another layer of mulch. And the mulch is the shredded, chopped, wood fiber, bark, hopefully bark. But you're not going to plant a seed in this bark layer. You're going to plant it under. So you're going to pull back, he says here, pull back the top mulch, right? And plant your seeds. He says plant your seeds, but I think you put in your seedlings. You may want to cut through the weed barrier below first, depending on the weed pressure below the barrier. I don't think so. He's making a very shallow one. I'm talking about a foot or so thick. And what he's done in his picture is interesting. He's put this not on soil. He's put it on a sloping driveway in a shared Massachusetts house. It looks like Somerville or something like that. And it's actually on a downslope, which means all the water is going to run out of it. I don't know how well it's going to hold up, but that's the space he has, and he's using it. And he's got a lot of green stuff growing there, and it looks good, but the slope is questionable. And he's putting it on macadam. He's putting it on blacktop. So many problems there. It's going to, cook underneath, and you're not actually going to be making soil underneath. You can't. So you're only building a little soil layer on top. I wouldn't do this on blacktop or concrete. I would do it on grass or on earth, so that you're enriching the earth beneath you and building a system that can sort of circulate a little bit more. Do it on blacktop. It's not going to, I don't know, you're going to get too much runoff. You're not going to hold enough nutrients. Whatever. But that's what he's done. Here's the article. It's at chelseagreen.com. Chelsea, English spelling CHELSEA, green.com. 9 simple steps to sheet mulching. You can also look up Patricia Lanza's book, which I do like. I do like it, called Lasagna Gardening. Lasagna, why? Because you're doing it in layers. Something clever for the grandmothers in the audience to get excited. Lasagna gardening. We're gonna go out and do some lasagna gardening. That's what we're gonna be doing. Oh, it's just gonna be so wonderful. You're listening to the Liam Scheff Show on UCY TV and Truth Frequency Radio. I can't tell you how strongly I feel about Fukushima. It's like telling somebody who you love very much that you love them. The words just don't quite get there. You kind of have to show them, don't you? So we kind of have to show the whole world how serious we are. I don't know exactly what we have to do, but we have to do something. We have to start an actual movement, not an awareness movement, not a petition movement, but a movement to make sure that, I suppose that everybody knows, I guess that's awareness, but that media knows, but see, media will get it wrong. So how do we do this? How do we do it? We need to get everybody to understand this is deadly serious. We have to say that, listen, Bruce Jenner isn't news. He's not a girl and it's not news. He's a guy wearing a wig and it's not news. It doesn't matter what you get cut off or put on. It's not news. It's irrelevant. It's one guy's late middle-aged thing that he wants to do. It's bloody irrelevant. It's on every single front page of everything in the supermarket checkout, so that we know what we're supposed to be thinking about. We know what we're supposed to be thinking about. It's irrelevant. Radiation, I know it's funny, I know it's weird, I know it's tragic, I know it's a big brave thing to do or whatever, but it's irrelevant because it doesn't feed anybody, or maybe whoever he's seeing. Thank you. It is that kind of show. But it doesn't change Fukushima. It doesn't change Turkey Point nuclear power plant in southern Florida, South Florida, near Miami, that is on its wobbly legs, or Indian Point up in New York, which is on its wobbly legs, or San Onofre in California, which was shut down, but it's full of nuclear waste, or all the other 104 nuclear power plants in the United States that are all on their wobbly legs. Come on. Don't tell me you don't care. Don't tell me it's too big or too small for you to think about. Don't tell me that Star Wars is more important than this. Please don't tell me that. Please don't tell me that. Don't tell me that you can't take this show, as profane and foul as it was, with filth and foul and filth, and send it to everybody that you know. Send it to everybody you know. It's on UCY TV. It'll be on YouTube 10 minutes after the show. It'll be there on UCY at YouTube. It'll be eventually on my Liam Scheff YouTube thing. You'll be able to find it. The show's about Fukushima and sheet lasagna or sheet mulch gardening. You can find it. Send it to everybody you know and say, hey, this is about the end of the world. And by the way, when you go to the websites that you can say that you can swim in a nuclear reactor, go swim in the nuclear reactor yourself. The rest of us who haven't been I was born at night, but I wasn't born last night. We don't all need to have it explained to us by the fake scientists how it's perfectly safe for us to swim in a nuclear vat of radioactive material, and it's just fear-mongering that says that a giant nuclear explosion that created 3 ongoing nuclear meltdowns has nothing to do with the giant radiation increase in the ocean and the giant die-off, the mass die-off and extinction of 10, 11, 12, 13 species. Now we're counting whales. Whales, not big enough for you? Not mammalian enough for you? I mean, we're not up the food chain. That's us. We're just happen to be walking around on land. Come on. Come on. Say that this is more than a radio show. Say that you're actually going to go out there and you're going to start talking about this with people on a regular basis, and you're not going to take the, I never heard of that before for a response. Yeah, well, hear about it. Hear about it. It's more important than everything, and I mean everything except growing food, and it might be, well, nothing's more important than growing food, but it's second. Independent journalism, and that is what I do, believe it or not, actually takes reading and research. Doesn't come free, and it does come cheap, but it doesn't come free. I pay for all of this. Jules at UCY pays for her networks. You're not being bothered by commercials. Speaking of commercials, we have some commercials coming up on Truth Frequency Radio, which is good if you can get them. No bias against getting paid to do things. But I sell a book. The book is called Official Stories. I sell it in big amounts. If you want to buy 10 or 15, I'll sell it to you for less, $10 a piece instead of $14 a piece or 15, including the shipping. If you write me, it's a very good book. It's a very fine book. It's a good book for critical thinking, for homeschools, for college students who think that they know everything because they were told something in an environmental class by somebody who never read any competitive literature in his or her life and wouldn't know what to do with a genuine Aristotelian argument, a genuine piece of logic if it came his or her way, for whom everything is a series of bullet points and talking points so that you know how to handle people who don't agree with you. That's the university crowd. And it's the non-university crowd. It's where everybody lives because nobody knows how to think. Nobody can synthesize. Everybody compartmentalizes. There's a difference. There are 2 kinds of thinking. Everybody in the world compartmentalizes. We all do it. I am not immune to this. We all do it. You get a piece of information, you're stressed, you're under pressure, you put it somewhere, you kind of forget about it, it lives on its own. Silly putty is something I played with when I was a kid. It has nothing to do with the military-industrial complex. Now, why would silly putty have anything to do with the military-industrial complex? It clearly doesn't. It's a toy that I played with when I was a kid. Nuclear medicine is a healthy kind of medicine that gives people health by putting radiation through them to help them see diseases that are caused by stuff that's a mystery. It has nothing to do with the military-nuclear-industrial complex. Why should it? Well, let's connect them. Silly putty is actually a petroleum byproduct. Oh, unless it's silica. Yeah, silicon. All right. Comes from 20th century manufacturing. 20th century manufacturing is all related to the petroleum complex and the industrial complex. 20th century manufacturing allows us to refine materials and turn them into highly refined semi-synthetic versions of themselves to be sold at very low cost because we don't think about the actual cost to the total destruction of environments that we use to get the products. And on that note, I'll see you next time. You can figure out